The year is 1975 and you're planning your 10-year-old's birthday party. You've gotten everything on the checklist. Invites, food, drinks, the cake, and now to just book the entertainment. But what kind of entertainment do you get for a bunch of 10-year-olds? The magician isn't available and no band is going to play a kid's party. What about a clown? Kids like clowns, and there's a perfect person who lives just up the block that happens to be free this weekend. Pogo the Clown. He loves performing for the children, and he is fairly popular with the Democratic Party. But do you really know who this Pogo is? Do you know about the man behind the face paint? The true evil and maliciousness of the man that will soon be known as John the Killer Clown Gacy. Stick with us as we take a small peek behind this cruel individual that killed 33 people that we know of in today's Serial Killer, a special episode of the Punk Rock Horror Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Cody.
And today we're here to remind you to... Well, what should we remind them? What should we remind them of today, Cody? What do you think?
Be nice to your servers.
Be nice to your service. I love it. We'll go with that. Be nice to your service. You know what? I think that's actually a good one, too, because it is that time of year where people are starting to spend more time indoors than they are outdoors, thus increasing an influx in restaurants all over the nation and the world. And with that being said, your servers... do not make a lot. They do, depend on a lot of tips. So don't be dicks to them because they're doing their best.
Yeah.
And the servers that are being dicks to the patrons out there, stop making a bad name. Come on,
get with it. Yeah.
There's only so many times we can tell people to tip well. You got to help us out here. But yeah, I mean, first off, welcome back to the show. How are you doing, Cody? I know you're kind of surviving.
I'm here.
Cody recently had a really bad back injury.
Yeah, that was fun. I spent, a good part of 2 days, almost an entire day in the hospital.
You were so drugged up.
Between the two, dude.
You were so drugged up.
I know. I am a little drugged up right now.
It's that painkillers, man. You need them.
It's great.
But also, what an awesome time it was hanging out with Crystal over at Horror Nights In.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I think it's out now by the time this has released. I could be mistaken, but if not, make sure you check it out. Just subscribe to her anyways.
Yeah, she's really dope, and that was so much fun.
Yeah, she was so nice. She was so cool. Great. I know we're going to be bringing her on in November. That's all I'm going to say. It's going to be a really cool topic. We're waiting for you. I'm
excited.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
I'm so excited for it. I finally get to talk about this movie.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Also, we have to actually thank a patron that we have, because we actually have a new patron. So real quick, before we go any more forward with the horror and all the awesomeness, we have to do our patron reward. So we have a new patron that has chosen to support the show. So we owe a huge thank you to Jonky Juice.
Jonky Juice.
Thank you, Jonky Juice, for coming on and supporting the Punk Rock Horror Podcast. It means so much to us.
Yes, it does.
I've already sent you your rewards personally, and I hope you like them. Thank you, man. You're the coolest. So this episode is dedicated to you, Jonky Juice.
That's right. All for you.
All for you, Jonky Juice. Even though this episode is part of the All of the Horror collab, which is a collaboration of a bunch of horror indie creators, podcasters, writers, and just really a bunch of badass people in the horror community.
Yeah,
we are fortunate enough to be in this group, to be working with some. We actually today we actually have a special guest, Tricia from Two Girls on a Bench podcast, joining us for our discussion later on. Tricia. Check out Two Girls on a Bench. They're fucking hilarious. I love listening to them. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to give it away. All I want to say is just subscribe to them as well. They're fucking amazing.
They're great.
With that being said, though, we need to jump into our Monday segment that we always jump into, and that's what's happening in horror. So it's just how it says. We're going to be talking about a few select articles of things that we find really interesting happening in the community of the horror world.
Not gonna lie, you speaking so fast is kind of freaking me out right now. I know why you're doing it, but it's still freaking me out. My brain can't comprehend.
I was really
right
thinking,
now.
like, when you told me you were at the ER last night, I was like, man, I wonder how drugged up he's going to be today.
It was so terrible, man. Fucking God, I love Dev's mom and dad. They had to help me. They had to help me walk to the car, and Dev's dad hung out with me all night till Dev got back. Like, oh, that was so terrible last night.
But
anyways,
I brought you cookies.
Yeah.
Sorry about your immense back pain. Here's baked good.
Which I'm not going to give it to you right now because we're not sure if you're getting surgery or not.
Actually, I wanted to give it to you right away, but Dev was like, we don't even know if he can put anything in his body yet. And I'm like, if only I could eat it for him and then put the deliciousness into his body.
Osmosis. Here, I'll eat it, and then, see, next time you'll just have to eat it and then lay on top of me for about 10 minutes so I can pretend that I'm getting the sugar.
And then Dev's just going to walk in.
She's just going to be walking at this. Like,
truly, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's like the fact that this doesn't surprise me is the sad part.
Like, I should be really mad, but hey, I mean, at least your clothes are on. So,
I'm just glad you're not naked.
So, I mean, that'd be kind of weird. You know, not that this is normal, but... Alright, so anyways, let's talk about what's going on in horror. So, and by the way, everything that we're going to be talking about, all these articles are brought to you by bloodydisgusting.com. They are an amazing source of all things horror, and we're just citing our sources. So, with that being said, found out that Naomi Harris is joining Venom 2 as Shriek, and supervillain and Carnage's romantic love. Sorry,
interest.
I was reading that way too much as like a prompt.
I know. I was like, it's not finished, man.
I was like, oh, Romanti, of course.
Hey.
Everybody knows what Romanti is. Oh, Romanti, a skibbity boopity. Like, no, it's romantic, you dumbass. Earlier this week, it was reported that Marvel character Shriek has been incorporated into the plot of Venom 2. Now Variety adds that Naomi Harris of 28 Days Later and Frankenstein and the movie Rampage is in talks to play the Spider-Man villain Shriek in Sony's sequel, with Tom Hardy returning to the title role. Tom Hardy.
No, I'm super excited. Shriek's a badass, man.
Well, there's also talks that like that they're finally going to do a Spider-Man meets Venom again. Like, I know they did do it, but like
Sam Raimi murdered that because he didn't want Venom in there in the first place.
Yeah, like I mean,
like I'll give it to him.
Like I love Sam Raimi, but this is a place where I'm really upset with him. So
yeah, but he was pushed into doing it. He was very vocal about like, I didn't even want Venom in there. I don't even like that character. I just wanted Sandman and the New Goblin.
But you know, it's weird though, because you think Venom would really fit well in his wheelhouse of like creatures.
Yeah, especially with the whole like symbiote thing and the Necronomicon.
Possessing
because then we could finally get the crossover we all deserve: Ash versus Evil Dead and Venom.
Ash versus Evil Dead, and Venom. Yeah, that'd be rad. So that will be exciting. So with that being, talking about Sam Raimi though, Sam Raimi is actually prized to direct an untitled horror film from the writers of Freddy vs. Jason, which is like a really weird combination in the world of horror.
Yeah, it is.
Like you might as well get like the writers of like Leprechaun teaming up with like Ari Aster to make a fucking movie. And she'll probably do one, he will probably do one about Leprechaun, and like it'll be like some sort of like a metaphor for like a broken heart. I don't know.
It's a broken heart. Isn't that
like that's no shade. I loved Hereditary, and Midsommar was great in itself too. But it's just fucking that's Ari Aster's like MO.
Yeah, the twist.
Yeah,
and Mother. You loved Mother.
Mother, I did up until that end. I will admit that end was frustrating, and one specific scene also threw it off. But I liked it. I liked it for the most part. Anyways, Sam Raimi hasn't directed a horror film since Strike Me to Hell back in 2009. Not much can be known. All that we know at this point about the plot is that they're under wraps for now, and the film is being described as Misery meets Castaway. So
that'd be cool.
So I'm guessing just a more extreme Castaway. So,
yeah.
So, but I mean, like,
I don't know. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we'll see what he's got up his sleeves. I'm excited for Sam Raimi to come back and give us something a whole 10 years later at this. Well, it won't even be 10 years. It'll probably be like 11, maybe 12 years.
Something like that. I don't know, but, well, just going back to him being paired with those writers, that kind of makes sense with, you know, the super campiness that was Freddy vs. Jason, and then Sam Raimi's, like, his first his Evil Dead trilogy, how it slowly got campier, but it made it better.
Yeah.
I can see that, especially with Sam Raimi, like, just loving using practical effects. I think it'd be dope. But, horror-themed films have dominated this past weekend because Maleficent and the Zombieland movies have just been taking everything. Yeah. Take my money.
Yeah, so it's right now Zombieland Double Tap is foreseen to be making the 100 million worldwide mark at the way it's going. It was on par with 2009's Zombieland, which opened gaining at about 24.7 million, and the difference has doubled with a reported 40 million spent and for that movie. And a similar comp to the first Double Tap could hit the 100 million worldwide mark. So that would be amazing. And Maleficent has also, the first film managed over to gain 750 million globally, but the sequel really only has to make 500 for it to break even. So, but international numbers were impressive, giving the sequel a 1.17 million lift. And I am going to go back to my point of our live show when I talked about what I love, saying that horror is dominating. Like, this is just evidence.
Yeah, seriously. So, it's super exciting. Like, and I like it because, like, it's not even just like, you know, super scary horror that's dominating. It's all the different types, like subgenres in horror.
Maleficent, a family, more type of horror,
fantasy horror, and then you have Zombieland, which is a comedy horror.
Yeah, I also want to say I feel like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark came out with some pretty impressive numbers too.
Yeah,
I feel like it did.
So, probably not as great as everyone was hoping, but but when you think about it, like even if it did really well, just with it being a horror movie in itself, like, is awesome.
During these horrible times, is it really a surprise that horrible things are winning?
I know,
movies,
right?
The good horrible things that we want to win when it comes to movies.
It's, you know, like when everyone's all happy, they want to get lost in the whole happy games and stuff. Yeah. But when the world's going to shit, everyone's like, you know what? My escape needs to be fucking more terrible than real life. I'm going to go watch someone get murdered.
And that's when me and you were like, we got the movies for you.
Yeah, here you go. Here's some recommendations, yo.
Because I see a lot of people making bad recommendations. I see one person saying that Sinister 2 was good. That's a fucking lie.
Oh my!
Sinister 2 was shit. There's at some point I want it to come up in this episode, in this goddamn podcast, where I could talk about Sinister 2 being a shit movie. So I will fight anyone on this one. That's
your cue, James.
Our friend James, reach out to us, give me a reason to go off the handle. But in other horror news, the Fate of Frame producer would like to bring the J-Horror series to Nintendo. So obviously the
Nintendo Switch, because it is on the 3DS, even though it has a different name, and it's on the Wii U.
Well, and truthfully, it was weird. It was like after the Xbox 360 era. Like, it's just like there was like no more J-horror in like the States at all. Like, it just kind of, it looked like it just like completely fell off the face of your
I mean, it's all on indie stuff. Like, Detention's really good. Detention's, fuck, that game fucks you up. But like, there are small ones and more, like you said, or what I said, that they're more independent. But yeah, the whole like big name companies given the West, like J-horror type stuff, it definitely died off.
Well, and like I've only noticed like two main types of horror, and the biggest one usually kind of winning everything over is just Resident Evil, and that's like no shade against Resident Evil, but it's just like there is no new BioShock, you know, there's no Dead Space, there's no any type of J-horror, there's no Fatal Frame. I mean, Silent Hill's getting the fucking shaft.
Yeah, Silent Hill's getting the shaft. There's no new Clock Tower, even though I think they said that's in the works. But yeah, no, I want to see more J-horror stuff. Like, I'd like to see an actual adaptation of like The Ring or something like that in the games. Like, play with that lore or something instead of that.
If the producer gets his way, I would like to see him bring back Fatal Frame as a remaster.
Yeah,
and that would, and obviously
either a remaster or a reboot. I'd even take a reboot because we don't have a lot of the Fatal Frame games, so it'd be cool to like have it reboot. So like a lot of people who want to play the games. Yeah, and it was interesting because you have to kill the ghosts with your camera.
Yeah.
Instead of like stabbing them, and you have to like do special things and stuff. Like it was really cool.
You had to actually confront the fear.
And it was terrifying because they'd get super close.
Right. But, so last thing happened this week. Which
is super exciting. Jade Bartlett will write the MCU's first horror film, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse. Announced at San Diego Comic-Con back in July, Scott Derrickson's sequel, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, is being billed as the Marvel Cinematic Universe's first horror film, set to go heavy on the gothic and horror elements. Benedict Cumberbatch will be back as the title character, with Elizabeth Olsen co-starring as the MCU's Scarlet Witch. So, yeah, I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, we're slated for May 7th, 2021 release date, which kind of anything beyond 2020 like just seems unfathomable.
Yeah,
for me.
That's
like,
so long.
And I don't mean that like in a morbid way. It just for some reason, I don't know.
Can't process that far out.
I don't know why. It's weird. It's not like that far away, but still at the same time, it feels like a decade away. But
we're gonna be dead by then. Like that's how it feels.
I don't know. I mean, the way the White House is running everything, that might be true. That's our one political joke per episode.
I would say, especially because he wants alligators and snakes in a moat.
I feel like that's a fake article.
I don't know. I've actually heard a lot of things that it's real.
Oh, well. Either way, that's what's happening in horror this week. All credit goes
past it being real.
All credit goes to John Squires over at Bloody Disgusting and bloodydisgusting.com. Again, we are just citing our sources. They don't know who we are, but maybe one day they will. I don't know. I'm at this point, I'm willing for even Shudder to take us on.
Yeah.
Not that like that would be like a bad thing, but you feel me. With that being said, so today we're talking about John Wayne Gacy. We didn't do a listener participation corner just because like we couldn't come up with a good question for this. Like, I mean, there's only 5 films about Gacy really. One of them is really loosely based, so mostly 4.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's no listener participation corner. It's just we really did not.
And also this episode's going to be dope and we didn't have a whole lot of time for it.
Yeah.
That's the one that has to go.
But we will bring it back for our next Monday episode, definitely. But we're going to be talking about John Wayne Gacy with the amazing Tricia from over Two Girls on a Bench podcast. Again, if you haven't subscribed to them, please do so. They're an amazing podcast. And again, as well, please subscribe to Horror Nights In as well. And lastly, again, thank you to Jonky Juice to being the latest patron on our Patreon. This episode is dedicated to you. And with that being said, let's jump into the subject. Yeah. All right, everyone. So as we've been talking about, we're talking about not just serial killers in general, but we're talking specifically about John Wayne Gacy. So as you guys may know, for me, this is exciting because I love talking about the serial killer. Well, love is a loose term. And but we're joined today. I love him. But to help us talk about this crazy psychotic person is the amazing Tricia from the unbelievably funny and awesome podcast Two Girls on a Bench. Thank you, Tricia, for jumping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great.
Go ahead.
That's all.
So this is part of all the horror collab that's being thrown around on Twitter, and for all the month of October, all these amazing podcasters and creators are coming together to create horror and to just hang out with each other, pure and simple. And we are so glad that you're here. Two Girls on a Bench is a hilarious podcast. Why don't you tell the ghouls and gals and creeps and mutants what is Two Girls on a Bench and how did it come to be a little bit before we jump into today's subject?
Sure. So Two Girls on a Bench is hosted by myself and my co-host Shauna, or maybe I'm her co-host. We haven't decided. But we used to have a blog, and we're writers or want to be writers. And so we've kind of transitioned that into our podcast. And it's been almost 2 years now podcasting about what's going on and then how we're avoiding or procrastinating the writing projects that we actually should be working on. And then we've developed a great community of people who join us for writing prompts once a month. They submit their prompts, we read them. And the other thing that we talk about a lot are snacks. So snacks, writing, and general hilarity ensues.
Gotta love them snacks, Joe.
You need snacks.
Yeah. The most recent episode I listened to, you were talking about avocado toast, and you were making me want to actually get avocado toast. And also, I want to throw credit for you having writing prompts at the end of your episodes. I thought that was such a cool thing. Like, bravo.
Oh, thank you. Well, it gets us going, and then, the point of it is, like, we don't have time, right? We don't have time to write. That's always our excuse. But we have 3 minutes, so at least we do 3 minutes, and we've actually developed some characters for other bigger projects just from those 3-minute prompts. So it actually does help and work to get you going.
Nice. Awesome. Well, this is exciting. We're really glad to have you on. We know that you're a true fan of true crime as well, and so this is kind of the melding of two different worlds, as one would say, when worlds collide. So I think with that being said...
5,000.
With that being said, I think we can jump into today's subject. Does everyone agree?
Yeah. Let's talk
100%.
about Pogo.
Let's do it.
AKA
All right, Cody.
Patches.
Take it away with the Gacy notes.
I'll say, which is ironically the name of my cat.
Oh, yeah, your cat's
Patches?
Patches.
Uh-oh.
I wouldn't be surprised if she was a murderer, too. She's an asshole.
She can probably fit in a crawl space.
Oh, yeah.
She probably already has.
She probably has, and is like, oh, look, a snack. It's the cat's version of avocado toast.
I'm glad we're already starting off with really tongue-in-cheek, dark humor.
Hey, it's cats, man. They're always dark humor.
Yeah, cats scare me.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about Gacy. Let's give a little bit of background context on him, shall we? Well, he was born on March 17th, 1942. Basically, all my notes are just about, like, the dark, decrepit shit he did. Because if you want to know more about his backstory, maybe look at a real journalist. But throughout his entire life, he was pretty well liked by everyone he knew. He was perceived as very nice. He was helpful. He was caring. He was really close with the Democratic Party in Chicago. He got to meet, oh my God, I always forget her entire name, but First Lady Carter. So he was around during Jimmy Carter's, presidential
turn.
run. In 1964, though, that's when, like, Gacy's dark side started coming out. Because in 1964, he was arrested for sodomizing 2 young boys, and he only spent 18 months in prison for it. And after that, his wife divorced him, and then he went to Chicago to try and get, a whole new life going. He's like, I need a start. I raped 2 young boys. I think I need a new thing to go.
Right.
So it's like, fuck yourself. And so in Chicago,
gross.
I know. And in Chicago, it's stupid. Like, it really blows my mind. It's like you sodomize children and you only serve a little over a year in jail.
He was examined by a doctor when he got let out after that 18-month stint, and if that doctor would have been believed as far as calling him a psychopath, maybe he could have prevented all of this, which is really disturbing.
Oh yeah, because I truly feel like Gacy would have been sent straight to an
asylum or something. Yeah,
just to get talk to him, because he did have a very, very troubled growing up, like when he was a kid. His dad beat him all the time. His mom just let it all happen and stuff. And especially when he was trying to come out as being gay, his dad was like, "Hey, no reason, no faggot," and beat the shit out of him.
I mean, probably not as in a hysterical tone as that. But,
I mean, he's a piece of shit, so he's gonna have a piece of shit voice too.
Well, I think what's though so me and you were actually talking about this today, Cody. Is so back then in the early 70s, not only was mental illness kind of like a suggested kind of thing, but it was also kids weren't really taken serious then either. And I know you're gonna go more into it, without giving it away, but
because what I found, the whole thing about serial killers, all of them in general, most of them came from broken childhood, with their dads being military men. Like,
Yeah.
and it's nothing against, military men or anything, but they came home from Vietnam and World War II, had all this PTSD.
Yeah, there was a lot of
didn't-
repressed.
Yeah, no one knew how to take care of soldiers. I mean, we still don't know how to take care of soldiers.
Well,
Right.
and
PTSD,
even
but
back then, when
back then it was more.
the soldiers back then during the Vietnam War were definitely more seen as murderers and were not treated with the respect that they're given today at all.
Oh, no. And then also, like, if you're a man and you showed any kind of emotion, that wasn't just like, oh, you're a man, hear me roar. You know, they're like, you bitch.
It was like the 70s were like this weird like peak of like toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
That like set the stage for like decades to come.
Well, I mean, he grew up in
Yeah,
the 50s.
I think if your son expressed an interest in anything that wasn't manly, that was a reaction, especially coming from a military background.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And so that really molded Gacy because he had to, like, stuff everything that about himself in. I mean, I'm pretty certain it was Gacy. His dad hit him and knocked him out for like 2 days.
Oh, Jesus.
So that one was either Gacy or Bundy.
Well,
no, not Bundy.
well,
it was
his-
Gacy. Yeah, Gacy was the one who got knocked out by his dad, and he was unconscious for a long period of time, and they just left him there.
Well, and also like his father regularly belittled him and often compared him unfavorable with his sisters and like called him dumb and stupid a lot of times. And he was constantly telling Gacy that he was never good enough in his father's eyes. And to this point, like it got to a point where Gacy was just kind of, I don't know if brainwashed is the right term for it, but he never admitted like the hate that he had for his father for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think Gacy also, I mean, and this kind of plays with that nature or nurture situation, but he was molested too as a child.
Yeah.
So, and then,
Yeah, because they were huge in the church.
yeah.
Well,
They loved the church.
Well, and just so you know, you are right, Cody. Like, he was beaten. Like, one specific story, when Gacy was 6 years old, he stole a toy truck from a neighborhood store, and his mother made him walk back to the store to return that toy. And apologize to the owners, but when the mother
Which,
informed
that
the
was
dad,
the good thing to do.
Yeah,
That was
Right.
the good part.
That's
But-
the
but
good
then the
consequence. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then the dad, like, went overboard and tried to beat him with a belt, and the mother got in the way. To shield John from getting, whipped and beaten with the belt, and he was also molested by a family friend as well, and so
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing a lot of like key elements to what can shape a fragile mentality.
Yeah.
Well, didn't he have, I don't know this for sure, but didn't he have seizures or blackouts or some kind of medical condition
he had
in
blackouts.
school?
He had a heart condition.
And he had a lot of blackouts.
Oh, wow.
There were some, especially his earlier murders. He actually doesn't remember some of them.
Yeah, he was
Because
actually
he would just black out.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
He was ordered to actually avoid all sports at school because of his heart condition.
Yep, that
Oh.
too. And
So-
so his dad was also like, "Oh, you can't even be a real man and play sports. So I'm going to teach you by beating the fuck out of you."
Gross.
And Tricia, the blackouts you were actually talking about, he was occasionally hospitalized because of these seizures, and also in 1957 for a burst appendix. So it's
Oh, my
like,
God.
yeah, Gacy keeps just having like this,
Shit piled on shit.
yeah, like just
Piled on
bad
shit.
luck over.
Well, he
and
might have
over.
had epilepsy or something. I don't know how much they knew about it back then, but
Yeah, because
the seizures.
No, it was never diagnosed.
It's horrible.
no, especially in the 60s and 70s, because he started picking up like his way of going at these things. Like I said, earliest is 1964 when he raped those 2 boys, and then it just.
So he was really young. He was what, like 20 something in 1964?
He's
like that's
22.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
It
crazy.
did not take him long
No.
for that switch to finally turn.
And then he kind of stopped for a while. So when he moved to Chicago, Gacy founded a successful construction business. He attended church. He got remarried, and he volunteered as the Democratic precinct captain in the area. So he would, like, during that entire time, he threw elaborate block parties. He just kept building a really
Right.
good reputation with everyone.
Super
He was-
popular with the neighborhood. Yeah.
and he was really respected by his friends, neighbors, and even the police in there.
Talk about hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
Well, and to even type it and go into more into psyche. Now, this is, I feel, a little more alleged. I do want to check the source to be sure, but supposedly, when he had a job as a mortuary attendant, Gacy actually slept on a cot behind the embalming room, and in this room he observed the morticians embalming the dead bodies, and once later convinced that one evening while alone he actually did clambered into the coffin of a deceased teenage male, embracing and caressing the body before experiencing a sense of shock.
I heard that too. Like, that's when he started realizing he liked, like, holding a dead body or being near dead bodies.
Yeah, I want to double check that one, but I don't want to, like...
Yeah, I mean...
But still, like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just... In general, just like, again, it's just like what I said, Gacy in his younger years definitely shows these, like, very key elements to his mentality, not being, being fragile, not being okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, that's just how it built up, and it's just crazy because, like, he had all these things, but he never went for help, because, like... For his mental capacity, everything that was going on mentally, because
well, and again, back then, like, getting mental help, like...
Oh, yeah, you're like, oh, you just need to sleep.
Well, and it's like what Tricia said, it's like, when he tried, people basically called him, like, a freak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, when you're trying to actually get help for what's going on in your mind, and something's wrong, like, after that incident with caressing the body, he actually reached out to his mom, and obviously his mother was very nurturing about it, and, like, heard him out, and they drove back to Chicago afterwards, but because he was living, I think he's actually living by himself at the time, in
Chicago, yeah.
So
when
his
he goes
mom
to
was
Chicago,
like,
he was kind of on his own.
So his mom was like the only support in his life, whereas his dad was a constant negative. He built. I don't know if he did, but I feel like with how his dad was with Gacy as a kid, with how he treated the sisters too, I feel like John probably had some sort of resentment against his siblings as well. That he wasn't willing to face, much like how he wasn't willing to admit his resentment towards his father.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's just fucking crazy. And so, as we know, he'd had the two rapes when he was 22 in 1964, but he didn't actually start killing people until 1972. So he was already out in Chicago at this point. I think he's remarried at this point too. I couldn't find the date.
Are you talking about his courtship with Marilyn?
His second wife.
Okay, I didn't know if you were talking about his first wife or second wife.
He actually married his first wife the same year he had his second wife he's married his second wife in 1972, which is the exact same year he started his killings.
Killing, yeah.
Yeah, because he murdered Timothy McCoy back in 1972 on January 2nd. Timothy McCoy was just transient, someone who just travels, basically.
Right.
Yeah, he
like
found him at a Greyhound.
Hitchhiker, yeah.
Yeah, because that was most of his people.
Probably back in the 70s, right?
Yeah. Where hitchhiking, you weren't that afraid. You could be like, oh, thanks.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like, because it's just such a weird... Like, the more we talk about this, and the more that we're going to be talking about this, it's just so surreal, because it's like, today's day and age, you kind of, like, know to be cautious of hitchhikers, and for the most part, try not to pick them up.
Yeah.
Whereas, in like, now, like, the red flags a bit more, which back then, it's just like, oh, just another guy trying to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, basically, because how Gacy convinced McCoy, because Timothy McCoy was traveling from Michigan to Omaha, and he was just sightseeing, and so Gacy was like, "Hey, why don't I take you out on the town, show you Chicago? You could stay the night at my place, and I'll bring you back in the morning."
Man.
Poor naive 16-year-old McCoy said, "Sure, why not?" And then Gacy took him home. And let's see, what did he do to him?
Well, while you're finding that, to add in, what was so terrifying about Gacy is that he was a very charming person, and I know we talked about this on our when we talked about just serial killers in general.
Oh, okay.
They have a lot of charisma and charming ways that they talk, and Gacy, he was probably one of the best examples for it, next to Bundy.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so how Gacy got McCoy is that he claimed that McCoy was standing in the kitchen with a knife and was gonna kill Gacy, but the dude was literally making him breakfast.
Oh my god!
He was being nice to make him breakfast, and Gacy just flipped
he's
out,
like, he's
beat
gonna
the
stab
shit
me.
out of him.
Yeah.
He was like, he tried to come at me, okay? And so Gacy killed him. He killed him and then stuffed him into the crawl space. And then
why do you think he would do that though? Why do you think that he would interpret as he would go to that far extreme as taking it as a threat? Tricia, why don't you take it? What do you think?
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Because you're breaking up. I'm so sorry.
No, it's totally okay. Totally okay. I was asking. I wanted to know your opinion about why Gacy would go to that extreme with Timothy.
Oh, with him?
Yeah, Timothy, thinking that Timothy's going to try to kill him with a knife, when in reality Timothy was just trying to make him breakfast. Why do you think he...
Oh, I think it's because, if he was a hitchhiker or a traveler, he probably thought, okay, well, this person has no one, right? They're away from their family. No one knows where they are. Mm-hmm. I mean, people just go away or leave or missing. So I think maybe he thought he could... And the kid was he 16, 17 years old? Timothy McCoy?
16, yeah,
16. So young kid on his own. So I think it was an opportunity where he kind of could get away with it. And I also think if this was his first kill, right? So he might have started and then gone too far, and then once he was able to bury him in the crawl space and cover it up, that's kind of okay, I got away with it. Because how long after that was his second victim? Was it a couple of years?
Yeah, it was about 2 years after. 1974 is when he got his second victim. So
you lay low a little bit and then get away with it.
With McCoy, the kid was standing in his bedroom and he raised his hands with the knife up and accidentally cut Gacy. And then Gacy claimed that he just flipped. He tackled McCoy to the ground and he just kept stabbing the shit out of McCoy.
Ugh.
He just stabbed him, and then he was just... And that's when he realized McCoy set up the dinner table for two. The kitchen table for breakfast for two. And then Gacy said... Immediately after... after he was arrested in an interview, he said after he killed McCoy, he totally felt drained, but... He had a mind-numbing orgasm as he was killing him.
Oh,
that's when
God.
And he said, that's when I realized that death was the ultimate thrill.
See, so he took that first step.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I imagine you would I'm not a serial killer, but
yeah. Well, hope not.
Maybe my knowledge of serial killers from Dexter, but you would lay low a little bit, see how it goes, and then start over.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he did. And then his second victim, no one knows who it is. They actually They
never identified him?
No, he's an unidentified teen with medium brown hair. Between 14 and 18.
Oh, jeez.
And so Gacy strangled him, and before he actually buried the kid in the crawl space, he noticed that there was fluids leaking out of the kid. Sorry, I'm giggling. It's just...
Oh, that's gross.
It's one of those things where you laugh because it's just so surreal.
Yeah,
I don't even know what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's so the youth mouth, there was a liquid coming out of the youth's mouth and nose, and it stained his carpet. And fucking Gacy flipped shit because of it.
Well, I'm glad you're pointing out the laughing, and the reason I'm saying that is because, so generally when it comes to human psychology, normally when we kill, it would be for survival.
Yeah.
Whether it's hunting or just if somebody's breaking into your house, we are willing to go that
or hurting your kids or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to serial killers and psychopaths, there tends to be this disconnect of sympathy for the victim. And so the reason why I mentioned your laughter is because laughter tends to be an actual normal knee-jerk reaction to intense situations.
We can't, hopefully, we can't understand the psychology. We don't have that brain that he
Yeah.
has, where we understand the reasons behind, just being reasonable about, okay, next time I need to do this when I kill somebody in case they stain my carpet. Like,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah.
I know. Well, and because of that, that's why he started stuffing the mouths of his victims with either their own underwear or rags, so they wouldn't leak all over his house. And this guy, this kid, he buried like just 15 feet from his barbecue pit,
Like
in his
where he
backyard.
has all his, like, neighborhood parties.
Yeah, he's just fucking.
Oh,
He's just like,
fuck.
all right, don't bring your dogs because they like to dig.
Right? Nothing to see over there. Have some hot dogs.
There's the
Jesus.
Karen because she always has to bring her dog everywhere. Gacy freaks
This
out.
is
Goes,
my
God
emotion-
damn it, Karen! I said no dogs.
It's my emotional support dog, okay?
Gacy's like, well, this is my
Oh, fuck.
emotional support barbecue, and I don't like dogs.
Dogs are my trigger.
So, yeah, and then by 1975, Gacy's business has been growing, and this is what fucks me up too, is because back in that day, it was normal for a kid between 12 and 18 to start
work.
working,
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And so he would only hire young men and boys
Yeah.
for his company, and for some reason everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool."
Oh my
Like,
God.
They would treat it like, oh, he's trying to keep hooligans off the street type of thing.
Give them an opportunity, like a paper route, but like they
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
dig
basically.
my trenches.
But again, like, that goes back to, like, the early 70s where, like, when a kid would actually say something serious that's happening on, like, no one would take it serious. Because, like,
Yeah.
because kids just make up whatever kind of mentality.
Well, I mean, that was the time, and this is, I grew up in the late 70s, 80s, but it's like, come on when the streetlights come on, and when I read some of this stuff and I hear the timelines you're saying, I'm like, I can't believe this was happening, when I was like a toddler.
Yeah,
Like-
right. Oh, it blows my mind. And so, just to go back a couple years, before, it was right after his first killing in 1970, or that was in 1972, and then in 1973. I totally forgot about this. Gacy took one of his employees to Florida on a business trip.
Oh, yeah.
And
One of the young boys.
Yep. And so he ended up raping the teen the first night. The first night of this trip, he rapes him. And then for the rest of the trip, the kid slept out on the beach because Gacy knew he couldn't kill him because everyone knew where the kid was. He was with him in another state.
Yeah.
And so when they got back to Chicago from Florida, the kid actually went back to Gacy's house and beat the fuck out of him. Like,
He beat up Gacy.
yeah, the kid beat up Gacy.
So how do they know this? Did he testify when Gacy got caught finally years
Yeah,
later?
he's
He finally
Yeah.
testified.
Yeah, and there's also, I believe that...
He
I
also
could
tried to
lose-
go to the cops, but the cops said, you're fucking dumb.
Ah.
Because Gacy then went and claimed to the cops that he was getting beat up because Gacy was holding money from him.
And
He didn't
Gacy's
pay
this
him.
upstanding political neighborhood attaché or whatever. Like,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So
I
they
mean,
don't believe him. Ugh.
And like, to give some like more backstory about even that, like during his first marriage, not to backtrack too much, but during his first marriage, Gacy joined the local JCs and became a tireless worker for that organization. And actually, he put in so much work that he was named a key man for the organization in 1964 of April.
Yeah.
In that same exact year, Gacy had his second homosexual experience, and according to Gacy, he, with this incident, after one of his colleagues in the Springfield JCs plied him with drinks and invited him to spend the evening upon his sofa, the colleague then performed oral sex upon him while he was drunk. And then by 1965, Gacy had risen to the position of vice president of the Springfield JCs. The same year, he was named as the third most outstanding JC within the state of Illinois. And to kind of give, for all of our listeners, if they don't know what the JCs are...
Yeah, what's a JC?
I was
I don't
confused
know.
too. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So the United States Junior Chamber is what it is. It's
Got
also
it.
known as the JCs, or a literal J and a C.
God,
As a
man, I
leadership
got
training
so many
and civic.
goddamn opportunities.
Yeah,
Fuck
well,
this guy.
Yeah.
it's a leadership training and civic organization for people between the ages of 18 and 40, and it's a branch of the Junior Chamber International. Areas of emphasis are business development, management skills, individual training, and community service, and international connections.
So then he becomes a business owner, and he's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm just gonna hire 15 and up.
Yeah, so he learned really quick how to manage a business, how to speak with a silver tongue, and how to get his way. I mean, you kind of see all the architecture being laid out for him to do what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fucking crazy. Yeah, and so, he built this, he kind of built his own little empire, and all of this stuff, and then there was the whole thing that happened in 1973, and then in 1975, he finally admitted to his wife that he was bisexual, but a year later, she found all of his gay porn.
Right.
And she was just like, this ain't for me, and Gacy even said, yeah, I don't like them titties, so.
and truthfully, that would have been the end of it if it was only gay porn.
Right.
Right.
But no. And so also in 1975, that's when he started more frequently having sex with young men, and he called it cruising.
Right.
I'm gonna go cruising. This is, God, I hate this guy so much.
So he's divorced. He's got his house to himself. I'm assuming the same house with the body near the barbecue.
Yeah.
And so now he's got even bigger opportunity here. He's gotten away with it. It's been a couple years, and now he's got a business with all these young victims available.
Yep. And so then in May,
it's a candy store for him.
Yeah.
He
hired a 15-year-old boy named Anthony Antonucci.
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 This is a really bad time to make fun of
It's
this
horrible.
Well,
horrible. Okay.
No, this kid lives. So
he survived.
It's okay. He lived.
Yeah.
Woo!
So what happened is that Gacy started the handcuff trick that he would do. So it's where you would tie.
Like his clown. Was it a clown trick at this point?
So
was he doing the
basically,
clown
it's
stuff?
like Gacy would show them how to get out of a handcuffs.
Oh,
and he would
like a
handcuff
magic
himself.
trick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But he wrestled, and then when Antonucci didn't want to do it, he wrestled him to the ground and then handcuffed him. But Antonucci was able to get his right wrist free because they weren't like as tight on his wrist, and he jumped Gacy and handcuffed him.
Nice.
Well, and handcuffing was also Gacy's MO, too.
Yeah, that was his thing. He used to handcuff him. And so, but at this point, he handcuffed Gacy, and Gacy convinced him to actually handcuff him, and Antonucci left. But before he unhandcuffed Gacy, Gacy told him, not only are you the only one who got out of the cuffs, you got them on me.
Not only are you the only one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Only one.
Yeah.
And this kid's walking out, so
Yep.
Yeah.
And so after that
God.
kid left, Gacy was like, well, I need to get another one, and decided to get John Butkovic. And he
that's an
disappeared.
unfortunate name.
Yep, and he completely disappeared.
Oh.
And, yep. But the day before his disappearance, Butkovic threatened Gacy he threatened to get him because Gacy owed him 2 weeks of overpay. And Gacy was like, well, I'm not going to pay a dead man. Like, that's basically how it went.
Well, and then he murdered him.
Yep, and then so Gacy conned the youth into allowing his wrist to be cuffed behind his back. He conned Butkovic, and how he killed him is that he just sat on his chest. He just sat on him for a while.
Yeah.
He was a big guy.
Yeah,
he was a really big guy, and I mean,
like a heavy set, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, he sat on him and strangled him, and then put his body under the concrete floor of his garage.
I mean, you know what's really depressing about that though is that I think it's actually Bukovic.
Yeah,
it's Bukovic.
Bukovic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No,
it's
and
okay.
so like, what's really disappointing, like, depressing about him too is that for 3 years, the parents called Butkovich's his parents called the police more than 100 times to say, go look at Gacy. He was the last person our child was with.
Oh my god! Yeah, I did hear that too. Like,
yep.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's just crazy because like they're just like, he has him. He's at Gacy's. Can you go find him? And they just no
one did anything.
And I can only imagine just like being as a parent how frustrating it is because like Gacy was prominent in the community. I mean, even with him as the clown, like he dressed up as a clown for basically a lot of events, and he did it. Well, what he said he did it for was for the kiddos. But then also quoted to saying that he did it as a way to regress to in his youth. Mm-hmm. So like there's an obvious like
well, maybe to be around young kids too. Like young kids run up to a clown, or at least they used to.
I don't know. I don't know a kid that does anymore.
My kids are not cool with clowns, but
I was never cool with clowns.
Yeah, me either.
But back then, like that was like child entertainment. Like,
every birthday party, yeah.
I mean, that's why even McDonald's way back then went with the clown for the mascot.
Ronald McDonald.
So even when we just watched The Omen recently, and there's even a clown at that birthday party. A couple clowns.
It's just
70s,
insane.
you know.
It was
well, like it's funny because me and Matt did a whole entire episode on clowns.
Yeah,
clowns
I listened to it.
Weren't even originally created for entertainment. They were sad.
And then you have Gacy coming along dressed doing that as a clown, and then you find out all the terrible things he did, and it reinstilled this fear of clowns.
Gives clowns a bad name.
Yeah, he gave all the clowns the bad name.
Bring in the clowns.
Or not.
They could stay outside.
Or they could stay in. You know what? You can stay in your tiny car, okay? All 30 of you get back in there.
Oh man!
Was that cultural appropriation with clowns? That we just did with the whole tiny car thing.
You know what? I bet they're the reason that there's tiny homes. Also, they're like, we can fit 30 of us in a tiny car.
That's it was actually a retired clown who's like,
there's annoying homes. We don't need a lot of space. We can all fit in here.
We can fit like 100 of us in a tiny home. If 30.
I'm sorry, those big clown shoes alone. You know, there's gonna be some problems.
It's like I can't even get through my front door right now. Okay. I need to take my shoes off. Stop rushing me, Charles.
As the sad clown nose deflates.
Oh my god. And so going back to Gacy.
That'd be great.
Circling back to the topic.
Back to the killer clown that we're supposed to be talking about. He had most of his killings took place between 1976 and 1978. He would. I didn't want to research all the killings because he's killed over 30 people. So I'm like, I can't round it all down. That's too much.
At time of arrest and confession, he actually had committed 25 to 30 murders, all who have falsely claimed were of teenage male runaways or male prostitutes, whom he would typically abduct. And this is basically what he was telling the police, saying that they were prostitutes and that they were runaways.
Yeah, pretty much. And then there was one, I'm really upset I can't find his name, but there was this one prostitute where he got away from Gacy and ran down the street naked. Is that Gacy?
Okay. That was. I feel like that was Gacy.
Yeah, he ran down the street naked, ran up to the cops, and was like, "Help me! This man is trying to kill me." And they bring him back to Gacy's house, and Gacy was like, "Oh no, he's fine. This is what we do. He's a prostitute or some shit like that, and we're just playing a game."
Wow.
And they believed him. They gave him right back.
And you know, when even the search for the victims started, which accompanied by police, Gacy returned to his house on December 22nd and showed police the location in his garage where he had buried Butkovich's body, and the police then drove to the spot on the I-55 bridge from which he had thrown the body of Piest, or I think it's Piest, and 4 other victims. Only 4 of the 5 victims Gacy claimed to have disposed of in this way were recovered from the Des Plaines River. Yeah. So, and between December 22nd and December 29, 1978, 27 bodies were recovered from Gacy's property, 26 of which were found buried in his crawl space, with one additional victim, John Bukovic, being found buried beneath the concrete floor of his garage, precisely where Gacy had marked the youth's grave with a can of spray paint, following a temporary postponement of the excavations imposed in January 1979 because of severe winter snowfall in Chicago. So, I mean, like, that's just... I mean, just reading that's really sickening. The fact that, like, that this kid was buried under concrete, and the only moniker was on his grave was spray paint.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and didn't he use his like company to have people digging under his crawl space, like saying it was for like plumbing or wiring or something like that? So he marked out where they should dig, so that they wouldn't dig up the graves that were already there. So he knew, like,
yeah,
that's where they found the bulk of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what's also crazy about Gacy's relationship with the cops and stuff like that, and how much of a high upstanding citizen they considered him, was in March 1978, Gacy lured a 26-year-old named Jeffrey Rignall into his car. And so once the actual man, for once, actually got into his car, Gacy chloroforms him, and then he rapes and tortures the guy with various instruments, including lit candles and whips, and just kept chloroforming this dude into unconsciousness. But because he wasn't a teen, fucking Gacy just dumps him off in Lincoln Park, alive.
This guy testified too, right?
Yeah, Rignall. He talks to his wife. He tells her what happens, or his girlfriend. He talks to his girlfriend and tells her what happened. Then he calls the cops, and they still didn't investigate Gacy.
Jesus.
And you know what's really unsettling about after the cops were informed about everything going on with Gacy, and when Gacy decided to confess, he stated that he wanted to clear the air. Like, the fact that this man went and did all these atrocities, did all these terrible things, and he responds with, "I just want to clear the air," like, shows a clear... but it does show a clear, like, disattachment, though, that he had to these victims.
I know.
Right.
It's just...
Well, and, I mean, this guy you said was tortured, but I kind of heard on another sort of report of this that he tortured most of his victims. Like, he raped them and tortured them and hurt them, and but the bodies under his house smelled really bad, and he blamed it on like sewage or whatever. So you would think,
he said there was
at these
a pipe
barbecues with, like, somebody would.
You think if he
smell
came
that
back to his house a month later and the smell still hasn't gone away, there'd be
right?
something.
Yeah. Like, it was like, oh, it's just the sewage. It's still awful.
They just never fixed it.
What can I say? The 70s.
Yeah, it's all plumbing. Yeah. Oh,
like, I mean, but that again though, like, that goes back to like how like of a prominent member in the community was. Like, of course you could say that, and no one would. No one
question it.
Eye.
Yeah.
Like, they'd be like, yeah, well, whatever you say, Gacy. I guess you're right. So, like,
and so, it's crazy. It's because a year prior to Rignall, Gacy abducted a 19-year-old at gunpoint, Mr. Donnelly here, Robert Donnelly here, and he did basically the same stuff. He raped him, he tortured him with various devices, kept dunking his head into the bathtub till he like passed out. He would revive him and just repeat it. And then and the kid was just like begging for Gacy to kill him, but he just wouldn't do it. Like, he's like, "Oh, get to it." And then after several hours of assaulting and torturing the youth, Gacy drove Donnelly to his place of work, removed the handcuffs from the youth's wrists, and released him. Yep.
Wow.
And then when he tried to go to the cops, fucking Gacy told them that Donnelly was just his sex slave, and everything was consensual.
Oh my god.
Like, how awful.
Right?
How many times do people have to tell the cops that this guy is doing bad shit and have them just be like, no. Yeah,
Nah,
it's no
he's
coincidence that, like, the naked guy came running to us and, like, the parents keep calling us with this other boy and, like, you showed up. Nah, he's a clown. He's a nice guy.
clown.
Like,
And you know
whatever.
what?
And he already has a record of raping 2
Yeah, he was
girls.
already convicted at this point and
Yeah.
released.
You know what's just so violating about that, though? The fact that he was able to get off by saying, oh, he's my sex slave, and it was consensual. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that was, like, an okay thing to say.
Right?
And they were like, oh, whatever, no big deal then. Like, yeah, big deal. Like, I don't think really sex slaves really break that consensual code to go complain to the police if things have gone too far, you know?
Right.
Like, I mean, it's just like the lack of common sense that the cops had back then. Just like it just baffles me.
He must have had. I know there's like video clips, but I didn't want to look at any of them because I was so grossed out by everything he did. But
I don't blame you.
he must have had some fucking charisma. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
Well, because he made his name in 2 different chapters. So his first marriage, I already mentioned with the Jaycees. After that fell apart with his marriage, he left it and then joined another like similar chapter in a different state and made his way back up again in the ranking and
Right.
became another community member. So it was like, like he had this one bad hiccup that everybody that was looking at it just like that, and he was like, oh, well, he's a good guy now. He's reformed. He's definitely not doing similar things, you know?
yeah, he's definitely not raping young boys since he has a sex slave now.
Yeah,
Wait, what?
And also,
Like,
A
whatever about this one
complaining sex
individual.
slave.
Whatever about Donnelly, he's always complaining.
yeah, fuck
like,
that guy. He's a little bitch.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
That's basically what he's saying.
You're like, that's just like how the cops were like back then. Like nobody, like how many? It's just, I just can't. It just still bothers the shit out of me. The fact that if the cops took anybody more serious at the time with the complaints and actually followed through,
They could have stopped him.
Yeah, they could have stopped him, and the body count could have been smaller.
Yeah.
And no body count is a good body count. There's no great number at
But
all.
still,
Just-
some
you
people
know,
would have been saved.
I think
Yeah.
a good 2 is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a good medium body count.
So we're at 2. It's been a really good season, guys. Good job. Pat yourself on the back.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I wonder. I mean, this is probably bad, but like, I would love to hear some crusty old detective talk about being there and hearing these complaints, and then later being like, "Fuck, we," you know, like, oh my
I'm
god.
bad at my job.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh my god. And what else did I miss, by the way?
I know. It's like when you think about it, like most of his killings could have been prevented if they just listened to the first person that was like, "Hey, this guy raped me,"
Right.
like and tried to kill me.
I can't think of the name, but it makes
That-
Go ahead.
I was to say, and the kid whose parents called, what'd you say, like 100 times over
Yeah,
3 years? Like,
3
that
years
is.
They called him.
Oh.
Like, and the cops were just like, "Oh, they're all runaways and prostitutes," because that's what Gacy was after.
Yeah.
He kept picking up kids and.
So then it's okay.
Yeah, and so they're just like, whatever.
Well-
no one cares about these people anyways.
Well,
Even though he had a lot of kids that were the parents were calling and like, "Where's my child? He's supposed to be at work with this
Yeah.
Gacy guy," and the cops are like, "Oh, they just ran away." Because that was one thing Gacy said.
What a
is like,
coinkadink, man.
Yeah.
Like,
You know, the more we
all-
talk about
all
these
those
cops-
boys run away.
I know.
Yeah, and the more we talk about these cops, the more I just keep thinking these cops look like the cops from The Simpsons with just how oblivious they are.
Yeah,
Right?
basically.
Like,
There's nothing going on here.
right, it's
Fucking
just,
Chief Wiggum.
yeah,
God
they're just
damn
a
it.
bunch of Chief Wiggums, apparently. Like, well, we should follow up with these calls, but
But I see that donut over there.
Yeah, let's have a donut
But there's
instead.
half off donuts over there.
I mean,
Um,
police do a really good job for the most part, but like this is hard.
There
It's
are
hard to
some.
hear.
We're talking about
Yeah.
these police from back then specifically.
these,
so-
these
pretty
cops
much.
in this county talking
Yeah.
to
He had
these
so many.
These ones, but
so
potential
once,
victims.
yeah. So once they started like patrolling Gacy's place a little bit more often, with all this, he started dumping his bodies in the Des Plaines River.
yeah, that's where he told them to go look, and that's where
Yep.
they found 4
And
bodies.
so the biggest break in the case, which is sadly the abduction and murder of Robert Jerome Peast. or Peist, I believe. That was also Gacy's, I believe, final victim.
Yeah, that was the final
they know
one.
of. But yeah, so he was because of that death. His parent, since he just kind of disappeared, Robert Peist's parents filed a missing person report and named Gacy. That he was talking to him and offering him a job. And then that's when the cops were finally like, all right, let's actually go check it. They had the smell, and I can't remember exactly, but they arrested him and then did a search of Gacy's house, and that's when they started finding all the bodies. Like,
in the crawl space.
They found him in the crawl space. They found him buried behind the barbecue, and they're like, oh, now the dogs can go over there.
That's crazy.
But he had several unidentified victims so there's like they don't even know how all the people he killed, which is upsetting.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. And after Peist, between December 20th, 1978 and December 22nd, 1978, Gacy was finally arrested. And then he admitted to killing between 25 and 30 teenage boys.
Holy shit.
Yep.
And
then he was finally, went through all the court cases, all of his appeals and whatnot. He was finally found guilty, and he was put to death on May 10th, 1994.
by the way, May 10th is my birthday, and
Yep.
I turned to 3
Oh,
the day he
no.
was executed.
Yep. The day Matt turned 3 and had his great party without a clown was dead.
So that
Some
was
info.
1994 when you were 3?
Yeah.
Oh, crap. Okay. I am just an old lady.
Oh, you are
You
graceful
stop.
and amazing.
Yes. Don't you
Stop
take
it.
that away from yourself.
We told Crystal this on this podcast. We're going to tell you this. No one is allowed to come down on themselves on this podcast. It's
Yeah.
only good feels,
Thank
especially
you.
with this topic right now.
Yeah, Tricia.
As many good feels as we can get in.
Shut up, Trisha.
Stop
God,
knocking
you
the
sound like
party
Karen.
You know what?
Bringing
You're
your
not a dead
dog.
18-year-old boy, so I think you're doing pretty good.
down. Way to make it about you.
I know, right? I don't
Go
know
ahead.
if this is real or not, but I heard that his brain was kept by somebody, like that his brain was removed by a doctor or somebody after the execution. Did you find any of that? No?
Cody's looking it up right now, but before
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
While he's doing
No,
no,
you're
you're
good.
totally cool.
I
I
didn't
thought-
see that.
No,
It was
it's
a
great.
doctor who wanted to, like, isolate sociopaths or psychopathic tendencies in the brain. So I just thought that was
He was
interesting
diagnosed
and kind
a
of spooky.
psychopath.
Well, to give some insight to what he was like while he was on death row before he was executed. So upon being sentenced, Gacy
Yes,
was
his brain was removed.
It was.
It was May 10th, 1994. After he died at 12:58 a.m., they removed his brain. It is in possession of Helen Morrison, a witness for the defense at Gacy's trial, who has interviewed Gacy and other serial killers in an attempt to isolate common personality traits of violent sociopaths. His body was cremated after the execution. And then in the 9 months of Gacy's execution, many of his paintings were auctioned. Some were bought so that they could be destroyed. In June 1994, a communal bonfire was held in Naperville, Illinois, and attended by approximately 300 people, including family members of 9 of Gacy's victims.
And while Gacy was on
Wow.
death row, upon being sentenced, he actually he remained incarcerated on death row for 15 years. And while isolated in his prison cell, Gacy began to paint. The subjects Gacy painted varied, although many were of obviously clowns, some of which depicted himself as Pogo. Many of his paintings have been displayed at exhibitions. Others have been sold at various auctions with individual price ranging between $200,000 and $20,000. Although
gross.
Gacy was permitted to earn money from the sale of his paintings until 1985, he claimed his artwork was intended to bring joy into people's lives. And then on February 1983, Gacy was stabbed in the arm by Henry Brisbane. a fellow death row inmate known as the I-57 killer.
No shit!
At the time of this attack, Gacy had been participating in a voluntary work program when Brisbane ran towards him and stabbed him once in the upper arm with a sharpened wire. A second death row inmate injured in the attack, William Jones, received a superficial stab wound to the head, and both received treatment in the prison hospital. So, but I want to go back to just real quick to the fact that he's like, "Oh, I made this artwork to bring joy into people's lives." Like,
God.
Yeah, because no one's going to associate the terrible things you did with your artwork.
With a clown painting that you painted. Yeah, no, that doesn't scare me at all.
Of yourself.
This is going to bring joy to people's lives.
Yeah.
No one's going to think about my crawl space
Look,
at all.
it's not Gacy, this is Pogo. Or Patches.
Gross,
you know?
gross.
So some fun facts about his final days.
Besides the ones already
Besides the one that you already said, his last meal was a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke.
Really? A Diet
Coke? Why have a Diet Coke?
I know. He really wanted to look at his figure. He's like, you know what? A regular Coke is a little too much with my French fries and fried shrimp.
I don't want to be really heavy around the thighs when I go meet Satan. Okay?
I'm gonna go all in on the fried food, but I'm gonna have a Diet Coke.
But if I have a regular Coke, my thighs are gonna be huge.
Everyone knows Diet
I'm
Coke
watching
balances
my
out
sugar.
all fried food. Everyone knows that, even deplorable serial killers.
Yep.
Oh my god.
That's the greatest thing ever. And then
Diet Coke.
one of Gacy's prosecutors from the trial, William Kunkel, had probably the best quote, in my opinion. He got a much easier death than any of his victims.
Yeah.
And Gacy's final words before they finally killed him were, "Kiss my ass."
Jeez.
Of course they are.
That was his final spoken words.
What a monster. What an absolute monster.
Well, I heard he was complaining like that the state was like killing him or murdering him. Like he murdered people, but they're murdering him. So like that's not going to like compensate for what he's done, or it's not like it's not a fair consequence for his as a punishment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
it's ironic that someone who killed 30 some people, would turn around and be like, "Well, but you're doing something wrong by murdering me."
Yeah. And we can honestly.
You're the asshole.
What were you gonna say?
So actually, it's really funny about Gacy going, "You shouldn't kill me because that's murder," even though he murdered all these people. That's what a lot of people on death row. That's like their biggest appeal. Is like, it's not right to kill me, even though I killed all these people.
Yeah.
And so just going over a couple of his appeals. In mid-1984, the Supreme Court of Illinois upheld Gacy's conviction and ordered that he be executed by lethal injection on November 14th. Gacy filed an appeal against this decision, which was denied. On March 4th, 1985, the following year, Gacy filed a further post-conviction petition seeking a new trial. His then defense lawyer, Richard Kling, poor Richard Kling, man.
Poor Richard
argued
Kling.
I mean, he's a lawyer, so he can go fuck himself. Argued that Gacy had been provided with ineffective legal counsel at his 1990 trial. This post-conviction petition was dismissed on September 11th, 1986. The 1985 decision that he be executed was again appealed by Gacy, although his conviction was again upheld on September 29th, 1988. With the Illinois Supreme Court setting a renewed execution date of January 11th, 1989. After Gacy's final appeal to the Supreme Court, it was denied in October of 1993, and his execution date was set and pulled through on May 10th, 1994. So it's just crazy. He went years just trying to appeal.
And they were all, I mean, that was, nothing went through, thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, he was full of shit. All of his appeals, they were saying he didn't have good legal counsel. That was coming from his own legal counsel. So he didn't have good enough legal counsel.
I'm pretty sure they were standing in a room with John.
And this is where I had read up, he had tons. They had him examined by all kinds of doctors to say he wasn't he was a paranoid schizophrenic. He had multiple personality disorder. He wasn't going to be like, what did they say, fit to stand trial because of insanity or whatever that reason. And thankfully, like, that all was thrown out,
Yeah, well, because when it comes to being, if you want to get, the whole insanity plea, like, I shouldn't be going to court or anything, I should be found found innocent because I'm insane.
Right.
It's the fact that Gacy had all kinds of almost all of his murders were premeditated.
Yeah.
Like, he
100%.
knew. So it's like, they were like, go fuck yourself.
He straight up mapped out where the graves would be digged for the people. I mean, they were probably digging their own graves at that point. Let's, be real.
Mm-hmm.
Those boys working for him.
Yeah. And
Several of them, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, almost all of them. Like, a lot of them were his employees. So,
and all these missing people, and they all happen to work for you.
Yeah.
Jesus.
All right. Yeah, I know, basically. But just one last little thing that I wanted to throw into him. It's funny because, like, a bunch of anti-death, death penalty protesters and stuff were there saying, like, yo.
At his execution?
They barely said it, and then they just decided to go silent and hold a candlelight vigil instead.
Like,
they're like, he might kind of deserve it. Let's just light a candle.
Why even show up at that point? Might as well just leave the candle there if you're willing to go through that much effort and go home.
Yeah, basically.
Like, Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
But obviously, with the horrible things that Gacy has done, we can see how it has inspired modern horror and how inspired horror at the time. I mean, a common misconception is that Pennywise was created based off of Gacy, and that's not true. No. But a lot of clown horror was inspired by him, and I mean, I'm even willing to go as far as to say is that even Rob Zombie included a lot of that type of psychopathic mentality with, Captain Spaulding. Rest in peace to the late Ted Haig. But you can see that this fear of clowns definitely came back and came in waves after Gacy was executed and after all of his confessions came to light. What does everyone else think?
You first, Tricia.
Well, yeah, no, I was curious because I heard this on your clown episode too, like that or Pennywise rather, was not after Gacy. And when you first brought up the topic, I kind of assumed it was. So did King actually say, like, no, this wasn't the inspiration for Pennywise? Is that where you got that from?
It's just
really certain.
It's just a big misconception.
Just because he was a killer clown that targeted kids.
Yeah, the reason King did clowns at the time was just because people were mostly just scared of clowns. And so it fit with his story very well.
And you, there's a phobia, you said. I can't remember what it's called too. Like,
I think it's agoraphobia.
Chlorophobia.
Chlorophobia.
I believe so.
So funny. So what about? Okay, so this might be too soon. Before Gacy was.
Too soon, man. Too soon.
Too soon of a movie before Gacy was like convicted. It was the Poltergeist in like 1982, 1981. There's a clown that like comes out and like strangles the little boy. The toy clown like comes alive, right? Poltergeist? No?
Yeah, I'm just looking up 1982 is when that
82?
82.
I know because I tried to watch it with my sister and we were scared to death. So in the 80s. But I was wondering maybe that clown came from some of this lore, like, but I don't know if that's when did he go to jail again? I don't remember.
Gacy?
79, yeah. So yeah.
I totally closed out of my notes.
That's okay.
It was 75.
And
okay, so maybe. I mean, because Poltergeist made that's what made clowns scary for me, honestly, as a kid. Like, I was like, I shouldn't have seen that movie. I was like 7 years old.
He was abducted. He got arrested in 78. So there's still plenty of
maybe.
time to,
yeah. So that clown, I have to say, scared. I was like 7 when I saw Poltergeist, which is kind of too young now that I have kids.
Stephen King just wanted a monster that would be most terrifying thing, and that's why he decided clowns, not because of Gacy.
Yeah,
Huh.
King stated in a 2013 interview that he came up with the idea for Pennywise after asking himself what scared children more than anything else in the world,
Yeah.
and feeling that the answer was clowns. King thought of a troll, like the one in the children's tale, 3 Billy
Yeah.
Goats Gruff, who inhabited a sewer system. Also, just so you know, if you go and look on Wikipedia, it'll say that Gacy was the inspiration. So that's
Yes.
incorrect info. I
Oh, it says
double-checked
that.
this.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Wikipedia's full of shit.
Again, sometimes it's really good. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's on
yeah.
the nose and it knows what it's doing, and sometimes there's people doing shit like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I have to say that book scared the crap out of me. The movie too. But Poltergeist, I think, was the first time I saw like a doll come alive, a clown doll come alive, and I had a clown in my room, but it was a mime, like those old China dolls. I don't know
Yeah.
why in the
Yeah.
80s we were given these dolls, and they'd sit up on the shelf, and they horrified me. So I had to like put a blanket over it every time I went to bed so it wouldn't look at me. Like I was so bad.
You look at me.
It was a mime though. It wasn't a clown, but it was dressed enough like a clown to be
Yeah,
scary.
but mimes are lower than clowns, so that's even scarier.
Like, they're a little less terrifying because they don't say anything.
But that also
So-
makes them even scarier because they don't say anything.
So it really kind of depends on your realm. Do you like it when clowns talk or no? I mean, if not, then...
So,
I mean,
whenever-
I
so
think
whenever-
there's an innate fear in us. Like when I first showed my little kids, like, I don't know, Sesame Street Live, and you get to like meet Big Bird afterwards. My kids were terrified of those characters, like
'Cause
completely
they're in
afraid.
person and they're huge.
They're huge and weird, and it's not shyness, it's actual fear. And Santa Claus even they're scared of. I mean, so clowns, it's like it's even harder, it's even worse. But I don't know what other movies. You guys have to tell me what other movies you think were inspired by it.
I think, for me, I would honestly, I do think that Amusement was a big one that was inspired by him. I mean, and obviously this is going to be reaching because without an official, like, oh yeah, that's what it is, like, I can just see it. But I would still, besides Amusement, I would definitely still, like, reside my critique with Rob Zombie's characterization of Captain Spaulding. Just because I see a lot of similarities between the both of them with the charisma aspect of it, at least. Now, obviously, like, Captain Spaulding was written to be more of an exaggerated, violent character, but I could just see some similarities with that, you know?
Mm-hmm. I can't think of a movie, but I know the American Horror Story Freak Show.
Oh yes, I was going
That
to
guy
say
was
that
based
too.
off of I'm fairly certain they based him off of Gacy.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, and he was a serial murderer, basically.
Yeah,
in
he
that
was a
series.
serial
And
killer
he was
also.
horrifying. Yeah,
Oh god.
Oh, man.
bless you. Perhaps.
No, so I like fucked up my back really, really bad. So every time I cough, it hurts so
Oh
much.
no.
So-
Horrible.
We're
Sorry.
pulling through, though.
Yeah.
But we're already at
Oh,
no.
sorry. Just one thing. Every time we talk about mimes,
Yeah.
I always just think of that card from Cards Against Humanity. A mime having a stroke. Could you tell?
Well, I have a deep history with mimes because Shauna, my co-host, and I actually we did a whole documentary or mockumentary about mimes. So I'll have to send you guys some links.
I'd love to see that.
Yes, I want to see this.
This is sarcastic, by the way, in case you couldn't tell.
Got it. I figured
No,
by
it's
mockumentary.
serial. Okay.
Yeah,
it's super
yeah.
serial.
Super
with that being
serious.
said, though, we're now basically at the end of this episode. I mean,
Yeah.
first and foremost, thank you, Tricia, for coming on again and talking with us. Thank you for
Absolutely.
blessing us with your presence.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really fun.
You are
having
both
you.
blessed. No, thank you so much for having me. No, I'm so glad like this all the horror has brought like this is our second year participating and it's grown so much. So it's pretty cool. So thank you for joining in and having me.
Yeah.
Well, and it meant a lot to us because it was like, and not gonna lie, when I reached out to you with an email or not email, a message over Twitter, I didn't even think you guys were gonna bat an eye at us because I was like, oh, we're probably too small time for them or something
Of course
like
not.
that. And when you replied, I was like, oh my god, we're liked.
Aw. Wow, that makes me feel
Someone
super
likes
cool.
us.
But I don't want to burst your bubble, but we're not as cool as you think. So there you go.
Well, you're extremely cool in our eyes. When
Yeah.
coming from two people that love to talk about themselves to another two people that love to talk about themselves, we love you guys.
Exactly.
But where can everyone go to support Two Girls on a Bench, and where can they find you, and where should they go?
So you guys can find us on Twitter and Instagram. It's 2 Girls on a Bench, the number 2. And then we're also on Facebook, same handle, but we have a group called the Benchlings. So join us there for more content and fun writing shit and also snack chat.
Snack
Oh,
chat.
it's snack chat. I just made that up. TM.
That needs to be a new thing.
Snack
Hey,
chat.
I like
Snack
your
chat.
snacks. We should hang out.
Snack chat.
And only
Yeah.
talk about snacks.
And literally, it's all just snacks.
The minute it drives away from snacks, it's over.
Yeah, get out. You can get out now.
Eat that popcorn. Do
I'm
it.
here to talk about Ritz crackers, okay? And not about you ritzing my cracker. I don't want that.
Lately, we're doing a gluten-free thing, which is super fucking difficult, but we're trying.
It sounds
so,
like a lot of fun.
Avocado
not.
gluten. That's what we need.
Also known as glavocado.
Yeah. I love it. So yeah, that's basically it. So yeah, and check out our show. We're on all this stuff. So iTunes, whatever.
Awesome.
Ghouls, Gals, Creeps and Mutants, you heard it. Please support Tricia and Two Girls on a Bench. It's a hilarious podcast. We love listening to them. We love listening to talk about snacks. For me, it drives me crazy because it makes me really hungry, but then again, I enjoy hearing about food, so I get what you can take with that. They're two hilarious ladies, and we love hearing them talk about horror. We love hearing them talk about writing, and they're just awesome. So please support Two Girls on a Bench, and as always, please consider supporting us on our Patreon, www.patreon.com/punkrockhorrorpodcast. With that being said, thank you, ghouls and gals, for tuning in. Thank you for Creeps and Mutants for hanging out with us. And thank you for everyone as we talk about horror. And thank you again, Tricia.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, with that being... Yay!
Yay, kazoo!
We got the kazoo! I was like, is she ever going to bring it up?
I know. Well, it didn't seem appropriate. There's all these dead children, and I don't
Fair
know.
enough. I don't think it's appropriate to be like, and then he raped 2 boys.
Right? Yeah, it was a little iffy for a while there.
Yeah.
We really don't lie. That would be the line. It would be like, out of all the things this podcast has done, the kazoo was too far.
That's where we went too far. That's the line we crossed.
That was too
Right.
much.
That's the one thing that just pushed it over the edge.
All right. Well, thank you again, Tricia.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right.